Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. You're lying awake, staring at the ceiling, when a thought slithers into your mind. One you've spent years drowning out with distractions, achievements, and carefully curated versions of yourself. What if everything you believe about your life is a lie? Not a malicious lie, not even a conscious one, but a story so deeply woven into your identity that you no longer see the seams. A story your mind crafted, stitch by stitch, to protect you from truths too devastating to face. We all do this. We tell ourselves we're happy in unfulfilling relationships because loneliness terrifies us more than stagnation. We cling to careers that drain our souls because uncertainty feels like freefall. We plaster over cracks in our self-worth with other people's approval, with productivity, with substances, with sex, with anything that keeps the darkness at bay. But here's the unsettling paradox. The lies that keep you sane are the same ones keeping you trapped. Consider that fine you reflexively say when asked how you are, that childhood trauma you got over but still flinches at certain tones of voice, that dream you abandoned because it wasn't practical, and the quiet resentment that followed. These aren't just white lies. They're psychological life rafts, and the moment you question them, you will feel the panic rise, because confronting these lies doesn't feel like enlightenment. It feels like drowning. Why? Because your mind would rather construct elaborate fictions than face 3 unbearable truths. You are not who you pretend to be. Your life is not what you tell yourself. It is. The person you've become would horrify the child you once were. This is the Faustian bargain of the human psyche. Trade reality for survival. Trade truth for coherence. Trade freedom for the illusion of control. But what happens when the lies start failing? When the marriage built on "we can fix this" collapses? When the career you tolerated suddenly vanishes? When the numbness stops working? That's when you stand at the precipice of the most terrifying question of all. Who are you when the stories fall away? The human mind is not designed for truth. It's designed for survival. And this biological truth creates a disturbing reality. Your brain would rather you believe comfortable lies than unbearable truths. Carl Jung called this our shadow, the parts of ourselves we exile to the unconscious because we cannot face them. But like repressed prisoners, these denied aspects grow stronger in their confinement, manifesting as depression, inexplicable rage, or that haunting feeling of being an imposter in your own life. Nietzsche saw this self-deception as humanity's greatest weakness. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. We build elaborate psychological defense mechanisms, what Freud called the psychopathology of everyday life, to maintain our fragile self-concepts. Rationalization. I'm not addicted. I can quit anytime. Projection. Everyone else is the problem. Intellectualization. Analyzing feelings to avoid feeling them. Modern neuroscience reveals an even more unsettling truth. The anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's conflict detector, literally suppresses uncomfortable truths before they reach consciousness. Your biology conspires against your awareness. Jean-Paul Sartre gave this phenomenon its most brutal name: bad faith. The act of lying to ourselves to escape the terrifying freedom of defining our own existence. We pretend we have no choice in our unhappy marriages, dead-end jobs, or toxic patterns, because the alternative, complete responsibility, is psychologically unbearable. Consider these everyday illusions. I'll be happy when. The lie of conditional happiness. This is just how I am. The lie of fixed identity. I don't care what others think. The most common lie of all. These aren't conscious deceptions. They're psychological life preservers that let us sleep at night. But like any preservers, they only work temporarily. Eventually, the sea always wins. The greatest tragedy? The more successful the lie, the more invisible it becomes. As Jung warned, till you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This raises an even more disturbing question. If our minds are wired for self-deception, how many of our choices are truly ours, and what price do we pay for this psychological protection racket? The lies you tell yourself don't just live in your mind, they rewrite your reality. Like invisible architects, they construct the walls of your world without your conscious permission. And the price of this unconscious construction? A life half-lived. The slow death of authenticity. Every time you swallow the words, "I'm fine," when you're drowning, you fracture your integrity. Over time, these fractures accumulate into a fundamental disconnect, a self estranged from itself. You become a ghost in your own life, haunting routines that feel increasingly hollow. Psychologists call this self-alienation, when the persona you show the world diverges so drastically from your true experience that even you can't recognize yourself in the mirror. The result? A pervasive sense of fraudulence, as if you're waiting to be exposed. The illusion of control, your brain's most insidious lie. If I just avoid this truth, I'll stay safe. But safety becomes its own prison. The relationship you stay in out of fear morphs into a slow suffocation. The career you tolerate for security becomes a life sentence. The emotions you refuse to feel metastasize into depression, anxiety, or unexplained rage. Worst of all, you mistake the numbness for stability. You don't realize that by avoiding the sharp edges of truth, you've also dulled the vibrancy of being alive. The cognitive tax of self-deception. Lying to yourself isn't free. It demands constant mental labor. Cognitive dissonance. The exhausting tension of holding two contradictory beliefs, "I love my job," versus "I dread every morning." Emotional leakage. The repressed truth seeping out in passive aggression, self-sabotage, or sudden outbursts. Decision paralysis. When your compass is broken by denial, every choice becomes fraught with invisible landmines. Neurologically, this creates a brain in perpetual conflict. Too busy maintaining fictions to focus on creation or growth. The societal mirror. Now zoom out. A culture built on collective illusions becomes a hall of mirrors. The hustle lie, that burnout is a badge of honor. The positivity lie that denies the transformative power of anger, grief, or despair. The consumer lie that fulfillment can be purchased. We've normalized insanity, pretending these distortions don't erode our mental, physical, and spiritual health. But the body keeps score. Chronic illness, addiction, the epidemic of languishing. All symptoms of a world that rewards dissociation from truth. The breaking point. There comes a moment, often in crisis, when the lies stop working. A divorce, a breakdown, a sudden awareness of mortality. The system cracks, and through the fissures, you glimpse a terrifying question. How much of my life have I sleepwalked through? This is the fulcrum, the moment when the cost of self-deception finally outweighs the fear of truth. The moment you realize you've been lying to yourself is not a moment of defeat. It's the first real breath of your life. The awakening rebellion begins with a simple, terrifying act. Suspending the lie just long enough to see its edges. Like a prisoner, noticing the lock on their cage is rusted. You discover the bars were never as strong as you believed. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations. This is a war against the most entrenched enemy you'll ever face. Your own protected falsehoods. The tools of revolt 1. The shadow hunt. Jungian archaeology. Every time you say, "I don't care," pause. Ask, what would I feel if I allowed myself to care? When you reflexively say, "I'm fine," replace it with, "Actually, I feel." Even if only whispered in private. Keep a denial journal. Record moments when your body reacts. Clenched jaw, stomach knot. While your mouth says, "Everything's okay." 2. cognitive dissonance as compass. That sick feeling when reality contradicts your story. That's gold. If you think, my job is secure, but feel constant anxiety, lean into the contradiction. If you claim, my relationship is happy, but dread coming home, get curious about the gap. The discomfort is the map to what you're avoiding. 3. The truth ritual. Create a daily practice of brutal honesty in small doses. When someone asks how you are, experiment with answers beyond fine. At day's end, ask, where did I pretend today? No judgment, just observation. The radical shift, true rebellion, comes when you stop asking, how do I feel better? And start asking, what if this discomfort is trying to tell me something vital? This changes everything. Anxiety becomes data about unacknowledged needs. Anger becomes a signal about violated boundaries. Depression becomes the psyche's strike against an inauthentic life. Historical rebels. Nietzsche collapsed from syphilis, but wrote his masterworks in his pain. Come what you are. Frida Kahlo transformed physical agony into art that still shakes souls. Viktor Frankl found meaning in Auschwitz by refusing to let Nazis dictate his inner life. Their lesson? The lie wants you passive. Truth demands you create. The first blood expect resistance. Your mind will retaliate with, this is too hard. The comfort reflex. I'll deal with it later. The procrastination lie. Other people have it worse. The minimization trap. When these appear, salute them. They're proof you're hitting pay dirt. The great irony of self-deception is this. The truth you've been running from was never your enemy. It was your salvation in disguise. The revelation after the struggle, after the rebellion against your own illusions, you arrive at the core realization. The lies weren't protecting you. They were preventing you from becoming. All those years of, I'm fine, of, this is just how it is, of, maybe someday. They weren't shields. They were cages. And the key was always in your hands. The alchemy of truth. When you stop lying to yourself, something miraculous happens. Your pain becomes purposeful. That anxiety? It's unexpressed potential. That depression? It's a call to rebuild. Your relationships transform. The ones based on truth deepen. The ones built on pretense fall away. And you realize this isn't loss, but liberation. Your decisions gain power. No more agonizing over choices when you're no longer trying to reconcile reality with fiction. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are by reclaiming your exiled parts. The ultimate paradox. Here's the secret the lies never let you see. The truth doesn't destroy you. It destroys only what was never really you. The false identities, the tolerated situations, the buried dreams. These weren't you. They were the costumes you wore to survive. Stripping them away doesn't leave you empty. It leaves you free. The new reality. Living without self-deception doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you stop fighting the wrong battles. Conflicts become clarifications rather than catastrophes. Failures become feedback rather than verdicts. Emotions become guides rather than threats. You trade the exhausting work of maintaining fictions for the vital work of creating reality. The final question. As you stand in this new landscape of truth, one question remains. Now that you're free, what will you do with your freedom? Will you build a life that needs no lies to sustain it? Will you become what you truly are? The choice, finally, gloriously, is yours alone. Epilogue. The truth tango. You'll stumble. Old lies will whisper. But now you know their voice. And in those moments of clarity, when you choose truth despite the fear, you'll feel it. The exhilarating, terrifying, magnificent sensation of being fully alive. Welcome to your authentic life. It begins today.